Some people say that narcissists don't have feelings. While it's understandable why people would think this could not be further from the truth. In this video, I'm going to explain why people can tend to think this, and I'm also going to explain how you can see for yourself that this simply isn't true. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. So first of all, why do people say that narcissists don't have feelings? The simplest reason is that narcissists don't express their feelings in the same way that, quote, normal people do. They seem to be very devoid of empathy. They can be very cold. They can seem unaffected by things that might devastate someone else. They can seem unmoved by things that other people might be moved by. And they just are generally very disconnected from their emotions, and it really shows in certain situations. I think it's important to point out that while narcissists do have emotions, they deal with those emotions and they express those emotions in ways that are very different from how most of us do. Narcissists don't just have emotions, but they have very intense and unregulated emotions. Their emotions are like a cauldron of fire sometimes. They're very difficult for them to manage. And the ways that narcissists cope with these emotions is pathological, is maladaptive, and can cause a lot of problems for them and people around them. And just to go back to my first point that narcissists do have feelings, think about the way that a narcissist in the middle of a rage behaves and tell me that that person isn't feeling emotions. But while anger is probably one of the few emotions that narcissists will express authentically, narcissists are capable of feeling the full gamut of emotions that most people do. However, narcissists do not know what to do with their emotions. They are terrible at managing them. They are frightened of their own emotions, and this is why they can tend to suppress them or project them or just basically manage them in an extremely ineffective and destructive way. But just because narcissists handle their emotions in extremely different ways from the way that you probably handle emotions doesn't mean that they don't have them. I'm going to go over a few very basic emotions and explain the difference between the way that people typically express and handle those emotions and the ways that narcissists typically express those emotions, so that you can see that while the emotion is still present, it's handled in very different ways and can sometimes give the illusion that the emotion is either felt in a very different way or doesn't exist. The first emotion I want to discuss is anger. It's the simplest emotion, and as I said, it's the most authentically expressed emotion. However, when a healthy, stable, grounded adult feels anger, what do they typically do? They usually will reflect on why they feel anger. They will usually pause and not react immediately, causing damage to relationships unnecessarily. A lot of times they will realize that their anger is unreasonable or maybe a bit of an overreaction, and they will change the way that they handle it based on how justified they feel about their anger after they've thought about it. Or maybe sometimes a stable, grounded, healthy adult might lash out in anger if they're angry enough, but usually they will later reflect on what they've done and consider the possibility that they may have overreacted. They may go back and apologize. These are healthy ways of handling anger. A narcissist, on the other hand, feels anger practically all the time, 24/7, and this is really difficult to manage. It's difficult enough to manage anger when you're a healthy, grounded adult that feels anger in normal intervals, that feels anger when something causes you to feel angry. But for a pathological narcissist, they live in constant anger, and they already don't know how to handle anger. It makes it even more difficult for them to handle it because it is so constant, and because they can't look at the source of where that anger is coming from. They project the anger. They pretend that it's coming from things it's not coming from. They are in rigid denial about the anger being your fault. Or sometimes they will project the emotion itself and they will pretend that you're the one that's angry. They will cause other people to become angry so that they can convince themselves that they are not the one that actually feels angry. So someone that's pathologically narcissistic sometimes can't even acknowledge that they're feeling the anger that they're feeling pretty much all day, every day. There's no way that they can reflect on an emotion that they can't even acknowledge that they're feeling. And then, of course, if it gets to the point where they do acknowledge it, then they can just blame it all on somebody else. They cannot stop and reflect about, why am I feeling this anger? Am I justified in this emotion? Am I overreacting? They can't ask themselves these questions because the true source of their anger is much too distressing for them. It's not something that they ever want to be honest with themselves about. It's nothing that they can really tolerate looking at. So they just project it out onto everyone else and pretend it's everybody else's fault instead of dealing with the emotion in a healthy way. So now let's look at an emotion that we may not recognize in a narcissist. Anger is easy to recognize in a narcissist because they're always angry. But what about sadness? Do narcissists ever feel sad? The difference between anger and sadness when it comes to emotions is that sadness is a vulnerable emotion. Anger can be felt as a powerful, dominant type of emotion. When a narcissist feels angry, it may help them feel like they're in control, they're dominating the situation, they're imposing fear on other people. But sadness is not something that a narcissist would want to show to other people because sadness is a vulnerable emotion. When a normal, healthy adult feels sadness, they typically feel like they can trust at least certain people in their lives. There are people that they can express this sadness to, and most healthy adults have someone that's going to be able to offer them some sort of support. And that trust allows healthy adults to acknowledge their sadness and to reflect on it and to own it and to not be afraid of it. A healthy adult that is sad can accept that they are sad and they can share that with other people, and they can accept somebody else's support. They can accept that someone cares about them enough to support them in their sadness. A narcissist can't do this. A narcissist cannot trust other people with their vulnerable emotions. Narcissists feel kind of a threat if anybody were to realize that they are feeling sad, because narcissists can use your sadness to manipulate you and to exploit you. So when they feel sad, they feel as if that's how they're going to be treated. If they show somebody else that they are feeling sad, in their minds, that leaves them open to the manipulation and exploitation that they would impose on somebody else. I'm editing this and I just have to stop and add that while narcissists do express sadness, especially vulnerable narcissists, what you will usually see is a contrived, manipulative sadness that isn't real. What I'm talking about here is genuine sadness. When a narcissist actually feels real sadness, they are very unlikely to show a genuine sadness to anybody. So the sadness that you might very often see is meant to be manipulative and is meant to control other people and is not a genuine reflection of how they're actually feeling. It doesn't mean that they don't feel sad. It just means that if they feel sad, they're not going to share that with anyone, and they're probably going to remain in denial of it themselves. They're probably going to lie to themselves about how they're feeling because they cannot tolerate feeling a vulnerable emotion. It makes them feel unsafe and threatened. They're going to bury this emotion. They're going to deny it. They're going to project it onto other people and pretend that other people are the ones that feel sad. They're going to, in a sense, congratulate themselves for being so tough and not being sad and not being susceptible to these kinds of vulnerable emotions. Narcissists might feel like it's almost a character defect to feel sad or to put yourself in that kind of a vulnerable situation. And let's look at the emotion of feeling hurt. This is similar to sadness in a lot of ways. But when you feel hurt, it's usually because someone else has hurt you or done something that you're perceiving in a way that makes you feel hurt. If you feel hurt, you're either misunderstanding something or you're reacting reasonably to someone else's hurtful actions. And similar to anger, you can stop and reflect about why you feel hurt and question whether or not you're misperceiving things. Maybe you're overreacting or maybe you're not. But you can stop and think about why you feel hurt and what's caused that emotion and how you're going to react to that. I'm sure many of us from time to time can have hurt feelings for reasons that maybe are a little silly, overreacting to things that just strike us in certain ways, and the person that hurt us maybe didn't mean to, or maybe we've completely misunderstood them, and we're able to reflect and acknowledge that, like, oh, that hurt my feelings, but I'm not going to lash out at that person because they didn't mean to hurt me. Narcissists, on the other hand, when they feel hurt, they feel attacked, period. And narcissists can really confuse feeling hurt for feeling narcissistic injury or feeling insulted or slighted for very frivolous, trivial reasons. From what I've observed personally in my life, it seems like narcissists sometimes think that they feel hurt when really they just feel insulted. And I think it's important to clarify that just because a narcissist might feel hurt or sad or angry, it doesn't mean that the narcissist can identify that emotion. If a narcissist truly feels hurt, that doesn't mean that the narcissist is going to understand that that's what they're feeling. Likewise, if they feel sad, they might not understand that they feel sad. So when I say that narcissists have emotions, I'm not saying that narcissists are aware of those emotions or are in touch with those emotions or are able to identify those emotions. That's a huge problem with narcissism, is how cut off they are from what they feel. But that doesn't change the fact that they do have these feelings. So with the feeling of being hurt, there's actual hurt, which they're going to suppress and deny and bury. And then there's perceived hurt. You may have been in a situation in which a narcissist will tell you that he or she is hurt and that you have hurt his or her feelings for reasons that make no sense. Narcissists will tell you you've hurt their feelings in very bizarre ways for things that just normally wouldn't hurt someone's feelings. And it's almost like they don't understand what hurt feelings means. And hurt is a vulnerable emotion, just like sadness, whereas anger is a more powerful emotion. So I think that narcissists are more aware of and in touch with the more powerful dominant emotions like anger, and that they are more out of touch and in denial of the vulnerable emotions such as hurt and sadness. And another emotion that many of us believe narcissists don't feel at all is the emotion of guilt. Narcissists will never acknowledge feeling guilt or remorse. They will never acknowledge the bad choices that they've made, but I do believe that the emotion of guilt does exist in them. However, I think that when they feel this emotion of guilt, they squash it faster than they can ever acknowledge it. This doesn't mean that the guilt isn't felt. It means that it's buried and completely ineffective. I think that when a narcissist does something that a normal person would feel guilty about, deep down, they know there is that emotion deep down that tells them that they've done something wrong, but they cannot tolerate facing that emotion. They cannot tolerate processing it or acknowledging it. And the fact that the emotion of guilt exists is why they work so hard to project it onto other people and to blame you for everything and to ferociously refuse to accept any accountability for what they've done. This emotion is what makes them feel so vulnerable. It's what frightens them. It's what makes them attack innocent people. So to say that they don't feel guilt at all, I think misses the point. They do, but the feeling of guilt is so threatening and feels so dangerous to them that they have got to work so hard to squash it that it appears as if they'd never feel it at all. Truthfully, you're just seeing the overcompensation. You're seeing their desperate attempts to get rid of these feelings of guilt and shame that they have. The bottom line is narcissists do have emotions, but they cannot express them authentically. They cannot be honest about them. They cannot share them. And they cannot let other people know how they're feeling because it makes them feel vulnerable. Because narcissists use your emotions against you. And because they project their own way of perceiving the world onto everyone else around them, they assume that if they show their emotions to other people, that other people are going to use their emotions against them. They know that when you show them your emotions, that they are only seeing tools that they can use to manipulate you. So they're not going to hand these tools to other people, because to them, that's all showing your emotions is good for. I think it's pretty sad that narcissists can't be honest with their emotions, because it really prevents a lot of human connection. And this is a huge reason that they can't have any kind of authentic connection to other people, and that their relationships remain so shallow and superficial. This is a huge handicap for them, and it's a shame, but it's not your job to fix them. And even if it was, there's no way for you to do this. You cannot fix the emotional problems of other people, and they wouldn't appreciate it anyway if you did. There are many people in the world that are in touch with their emotions and can have a healthy back and forth with you, where you can support them in the emotions they feel, and they can support you in the emotions you feel, and nobody's using these emotions as weapons against each other. There is a world like that exists. You don't need to continue on in these relationships with narcissistic individuals that won't allow you to share your emotions without punishing you, and will refuse to share their emotions with you. It's a thankless, pointless job, and really you're just enabling their toxic habits of managing their emotions in a very maladaptive way. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.